everyone, and welcome back. Today we are talking about lesson 4.1, which in our Math 8 textbooks is all about representing percents. So a little review here. We already know that the word of means that you get to multiply. So if I say I only want half of 8, then you know that I mean that I want half times 8, which is 4. So we can represent this fraction as a percent by saying 50%, which is half of 100, 50% of 8, we can say 0.5 times 8 is the same. It's equal to 4. So why do we use percentages to explain something? Well, we will encounter percents lots in our daily lives. For example, in nutrition, on every food item that you have, you will find these nutrition facts. Anything that is processed has to have these in Canada, and it tells us the percentage of our daily value of certain intakes. So for example, this serving, I'm not sure what it is, 25 pieces probably of M&Ms or something, it has 27% of the daily fat that you should be having. It also only has 6% of the calcium you should have that day, and only 6% of the iron you should have that day. And also, it's really handy to know percents so you know what you got on your last math test. So for example, let's pretend you got 32 out of 42. Pretty good. This translates, if you do on your calculator, 32 divided by 42, you'll get 0.7619, and you can times that number, 0.76, by 100 to get our percent. So you just multiply your decimal by 100 to get the percentage, and 76 falls right into this range here between 73 and 85, so you got a B. Representing percents, we can show a percentage on a grid. For example, on a 100 grid, that is 10 squares by 10 squares, 10 times 10 is 100. Each little square represents 1 out of 100 squares, so that would be 1%. In this case, we can color in 25%. So we have 10, 20 in these squares, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 25. But what happens, say, if you get a percentage that's over 100 or under 1%? Well, if it's over 100, you might need to use more than one grid. For example, 168. So on the first grid, we'll fill in all 100. So all 100, that's our 100 part. So that's 100%. And then on this grid, we'll show the 68%. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 here. So coloring all this up here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All that down there. If you have a highlighter or something, it works a little bit better than a little pen. And if you have under 1%, then you're going to zoom in on one of your boxes. So this box here represents 1 out of 100, so let's zoom in on that box and make it bigger. So this orange box is the same as that little orange box. And we're going to break this box down into a fraction. So we want to color in 3/5. In this case, 3/5, our denominator would be 5, so let's divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and color in 3 of those 5. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That is 3/5. So calculate the following. You will get to use your calculator finally in your math class, so let's practice. 50% of 30, you can say 50% is a decimal. You can say this divided by 100 gives you 0.5 times 30. So to plug this into your calculator, you would say 0.5 times 30 equals 15. Hopefully you already knew that half of 30 was 15, but let's try another one. So 8%, we need to do 8 divided by 100 is 0.08. We have to divide this by 100. 0.08 times 140 equals 11.12. Sorry, 11.2. 26 out of 375. Divide this by 100. We get 0.26 times 375. If you plug that into your calculator, you should get 97.5. 2.5 divided by 100 is going to give you 0.025 times 120. And this will give you the answer of 3. Uh-oh, this is a big number. 255 divided by 100 will give us 2.55 times 50, which gives us 127.5. Finally, 38.9 divided by 100 will give us 0.389 times 600. And that gives us 233.4. So now you know how to use this on your calculator and in a grid. Let's try some examples. Balraj told the Bhangra team that he wanted everyone to give 110% on their next performance. Represent this using a 100 grid. So 110, the first grid will be all about that 100 part. So here we go, that's our 100%. Now we're going to do the remaining 10% on this grid. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll just color in that whole top line. For a large theater production, 30% of the cost of a ticket goes to salaries, rent, and production. 30% goes to investors, and 40% goes to the producer. If a ticket costs $95, how much is going to each category? Well, if we say $95 and 30% is going to one, and of that $95, 30% is going to the next, and 40% is left over for our producer. Okay, so $95 times 30%. 30% can also be described as a decimal, 0.30, or you could just say 0.3. And here, 95 times 0.3, and 95 times 0.40, or 0.4, either one. So 95 times 0.3, if you plug that into your calculator, you should get $28.50 to salaries, rent, and production. And since we have the same question next, then $28.50 is also going to go to investors. And 95 times 0.4 gives us $38 per ticket to the producer. All right, last example. The area of Lake Winnipeg is about 85% of the area of Great Slave Lake. The area of Great Slave Lake is 28,600 kilometers squared. What's the area of Lake Winnipeg? So if we have here, this is Great Slave Lake, and the area of Lake Winnipeg is like 80% or 85%, so maybe about that much. This here in the middle, that is Lake Winnipeg. So if we know that Lake Winnipeg is 85% of 28,600 kilometers squared, we can say 85% is a decimal. 0.85 times 28,600 will give us 24,310 kilometers squared. So that is our area of Lake Winnipeg. Now you know how to represent percentages using a grid. Stay tuned next day for lesson 4.2 when we talk about fractions, decimals, and percents.